Welcome back to All Things Creepy. I'm your host, Micah James. I just want to acknowledge the audio first, if I sound different, and before someone else brings it up. I know I do this with a lot of episodes, so as you can imagine, as usual, I forgot my microphone as I was traveling. I admit I should start packing it whenever I do travel and I do have to record. But that's besides the point right now. To start off, the spookiest month of the year, I took to watching some short horror films that are supposedly some of the scariest short films on YouTube right now. For my own list, I ended up using articles from Creepy Bonfire, Ranker, and Screen Rant. I will be linking those articles in the show notes in case you want to watch the movies that I haven't listed in my own list. On top of that, I also made a playlist of all the movies that I did watch and will also be linking in the show notes in case anyone wants to watch the ones that I mentioned in this episode. The last two things before we really get into it. First of all, this is going to be different from the 31 Days of Horror. I wanted to do this so that way you guys have something to watch during the spooky season, so you guys don't have to wait for my 31 Days of Horror. And then the last thing before we get into it, I am going to be keeping this as spoiler-free as possible. My main point for this is to let you know if these movies are worth the watch. However, there are going to be very, very minor spoilers here and there, although none of these will spoil the ending by any means. But if you want absolutely spoiler-free, please follow my link to the playlist I made, watch those, and then come back to this episode. Anyways, let's dive right into it. Like I said, there are 20 of these. The first one I watched, it was called Lights Out. This one does really well on building the tension that someone feels and really plays on the fear of the dark. And if you like that, then I definitely highly recommend Lights Out. However, with how short it is, some things make you question why our main character does what she does. But like I said, overall, very well done. Next is The Smiling Man. This one actually kind of gives me chills because it's something that I can see happening in real life. There's no jump scares or anything like that, but it's like one of those films that will stick with you, in my opinion. So, again, definitely worth the watch. Bedfellows. A man and a woman are in bed. The woman understandably thinks she is sleeping next to her husband. However, right before she falls asleep, she gets a call from her husband. I think this short film is worth the watch overall, but it does have a jump scare at the end, which, if it didn't have the jump scare, it would be perfect. But overall, it is very much worth the watch. Just be careful of the jump scare if you are sensitive to those kinds of scares like I am. Number 4 is Tuck Me In. This one's only about a minute long, but it truly does the trick. If you decide to watch it, it might remind you of a certain 2-sentence horror story. And there's also absolutely no jump scares in this one either. But it's a minute long. So it's definitely, if you're looking for something super quick to watch, but is scary, please watch this one. The Birch is number 5 on my list. The Birch is, in my opinion, the absolutely perfect anti-bullying and anti-abuse movie. The antagonist gets what's coming to him, basically. In my opinion, you'll only be terrified if you yourself are a bully or abuser. It very much reminds me of, to a certain extent, it reminds me of Pan's Labyrinth, almost, with the way, when you see the Birch, when the Birch shows up, you'll see what I mean by reminding me of Pan's Labyrinth. It just kind of has that vibe to it. The sixth one I watched is Close Your Eyes. This one I'm kind of mixed about. I thought it was going in one direction, but it ended up going in a completely different one. I didn't dislike it, but it also wasn't one of the scariest ones I've seen either. Although I will say that the person who played the monster in this short film did really well. It just felt like it had two different storylines to it, and for how short it was, I don't know, I'm kind of mixed on it. If you choose to watch this, I say watch it for the person who does play the monster in it. Next is We Got a Dog. This one is wild, and it's the only way I can describe this one. It's just straight up wild, but in a good way. It's weird, it's creepy, and it's fun. Definitely worth the watch. Number 8 is 2 a.m. Smiling Man. This one is based on the creepypasta titled The Smiling Man. So if you've read that one or listened to it, you already know the story of this short film. It's a very well done adaptation. It has very minimal dialogue, which works well. I also thought that they would have used CGI or something like that to make the smiling man's mouth or eyes bigger, but I'm glad to say that they didn't do that. In fact, because they didn't use any kind of special effects for this, it did give it that edge of being a little scarier. And I, again, definitely highly recommend 2 a.m. Smiling Man, especially if you don't want to read a creepypasta and rather see an adaptation of it. But it's definitely probably one of the best adaptations of a creepypasta that I personally ever watched. The 9th one that I watched is Sleepy Eyes. I personally wouldn't recommend this, mostly because I'm not a fan of videos or movies where the punchline, for lack of a better word, is a jump scare. That being said, the description of Sleepy Eyes does warn you that that's what's coming. All that being said, I did enjoy the build-up. The soundtrack was great. The visuals are great. I just don't like jump scares. So that's why I don't personally recommend it. But if you don't mind jump scares, please, by all means, go watch it. I think it's worth it if you do enjoy jump scares. All right, now we're halfway through. Number 10 is Creek. This old woman lives by herself. She hears a strange noise, then hears a strange laugh. Yet she's home alone. She decides to investigate instead of running away like any logical person would do, or even call the police. The person who created this short did a fantastic job fitting a whole movie's worth of intensity in just 3 short minutes. I highly recommend it, if for no other reason than to scream, "Why would you not run away?" at your screen. It is just highly well done. Number 11 that I watched is Alone Time. I'm a little bit in the middle of the road for this one. On one hand, the feeling the short is trying to convey is something that a lot of women and femme-presenting people do feel. But on the other hand, it felt like the video could have been a few minutes shorter and still got the same message across. With that being said, I do believe that Rod Blackhurst, the director, is someone worth checking out overall. I watched a few of his other videos, and he does very well in creating like these really good vibes. So I definitely recommend checking out a few of his other videos. The next one is The Last Time I Saw Richard. Okay, so this one is scary, it's gay, it's heart-wrenching, it is so worth it. Of all of these, this is the one that I don't want to spoil whatsoever, so I'll leave you with this. Please, please watch it. It is so good, and you won't be upset by it. Next is The Umbrella Factory. This is kind of a monkey's paw situation. While the story has been told time and time again, it's still so worth the watch. The animation and narration are just absolutely fantastic, and it's so worth the watch, even if you know the baseline story of it all. Number 14 is The Offering. Another concept that I feel like I've seen many times before, but I'm not mad at it. This is one of the few short films I've seen that I feel like would benefit from being a little bit longer. I want to know where the creature came from and why they need to make an offering. Is the whole town in on it, and it just so happens that it's this son and father who have to make the offering this time? Even if these questions aren't answered, it's still something interesting to explore, and that I think, like I said, this short film would benefit from being longer or even having a sequel to it. Next one is The Alphabet. This one was directed and written by David Lynch in 1968. It's definitely unsettling and scary. I say if you're a fan of Lynch, please do watch it. It's so worth it. If you're not a fan, you might not like it. If you haven't watched anything by Lynch, I still recommend it, but just go into it knowing that it is surreal and a bit unsettling, like I've said. Next is Look-See. Rather than being an actual short film, Look-See is a short form series. Each video is no more than maybe 4 minutes long or so. Each person in each episode is followed by this weird looking creature. That's all I'll really say about it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. The version that I put into my playlist, rather than putting each individual episode in there, it's the whole chronological series that is linked in the show notes. So that way you don't have to keep watching each individual episode and you can watch the whole series without having to click through the episodes. Next was The Blackwater Gospel. Another one that is animated. And the animation is so great. The voice acting is great. The music is great. The story is great. It just, as a whole, it's great. If this was any shorter, it would have not done the trick. If it was any longer, I feel like it would have dragged out. 9.5 minutes was the perfect time for this one. And it was just absolutely fantastic. Next is The Cop Cam. I feel like this one was a little too short. I'm not saying it had to be much longer, but because of how short it was, it didn't feel like it could have been as scary, especially compared to others on this list. But something I did like about it is how it actually looked like cop cam footage to a certain extent, so I did appreciate that from this. Alright, our penultimate one is The Captured Bird. This one is interesting to say the least. I did thoroughly enjoy it, but I didn't necessarily think it was super scary. Maybe if you had your kid watch it, it might be a different story. But even so, regardless, it is definitely very interesting and I still recommend it. For the actual last one for this episode is Mama. This is the short film that inspired the feature-length film of the same name. I almost find this one scarier than the full movie because it leaves it so open-ended that it just causes your imagination to run wild. So I definitely recommend watching this short film. Anyways, I know this episode is a little bit short, but I hope you watch some of these. Like I said, the articles that I use to create my own list will be linked in the show notes, as well as the playlist I made for this episode. Now, with all that being said, I will see you guys next week with another episode, hopefully a little bit longer. Anyways, stay safe out there and be creepy, especially this month.